Well, 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 well. Welcome to episode 90 of the Titanforge podcast. It is
It's
I.
91. It's
91!
91.
Oh, dude, I did not change the backgrounds either as well. So this is, dude, and last episode I said 91 instead of 90. This is going to be like one of those TV shows where they accidentally release the episodes out of order, or they're like forced to by world events or something.
We'll change the thumbnail on YouTube, and people will be none the wiser until they click. They're like, "What the fuck? It's the same background," but they'll not realize. It'll be fine.
Yeah, this background is the beautiful Castle Nathria, looking down at the SLG fight arena. One of my favorite places of all time, so.
This is where we're holding
Love
the
being
DK
here.
obituary.
Yes. So, that is, this week we've got news from the PTR, including the DK obituary, which we'll be having today. We'll be determining whether the rumors of their demise are founded or not. And we also have a bunch of other news from the 9-1 PTR, stuff about the new score, the in-game M plus score, stuff about Keystone Re-rolling, which to me is really exciting. Bunch of stuff like that. So I guess we can start off with some current events, though. You guys been able to play Burning Crusade Classic pre-patch, which was delayed until midnight or something of the patch day?
Oh wow, Burning Crusade Classic. Oh no.
I saw a good tweet about that. It was like, you have 14 days to level your blood elves, except now you have 13 days. Because I guess it was delayed by like 12 hours, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read through like the Kyvax had a community post talking about the delay. Oh my god, classic players are the biggest. Like, I don't know what's wrong with them, man. Like, they are screeching on the forums.
The thing is as well, like, back in TBC, back in Classic, like, maintenance went this long. Not this long, but it went to like, there were like 8-hour maintenances were kind of the norm, and 6 or 14-hour, 12-hour maintenance was like not that uncommon.
Dude, there were death threats on the forums.
Yeah,
I'm so
that
confused.
stuff obviously, is always never acceptable. So that's the news from Classic. We'll keep you posted with all the Classic news you need to know, including who gets Realm First Jewel Crafting to 300. That
Realm
race is
First
one
60
that we'll be
Blood
following.
Elf.
Yeah, Realm First 60 Draenei of each class, Blood Elf of each class, all that kind of stuff as well. That's this is your source for that, so make sure you stay tuned. Also, in retail news this weekend, the Great Push Proving Grounds are happening, which is the upcoming M Plus tournament, where it's now been announced that Tettles and myself will be on the casting squad.
How I have a question. How have you been explaining that to people? Because what I've been saying is, there's nothing been formally announced. However, I have something planned that weekend.
Yeah. People ask like if I'm doing Great Push, and I'll be like, I'm not playing in it.
I'm not playing it. There we go. That's a great one.
Would you say if someone was like, "Are you going out of town?"
In a sense. I'll be traveling to 8 of my favorite resorts.
with six of my favorite squads of 5 players.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that you always kind of it's kind of just assumed, right, that like the MDI casters are still going to be MDI casters for the next MDI thing. Obviously, at some point that everybody leaves it eventually, right? Everybody finds a new job eventually, I guess, or stops doing something. But
yeah, there will be a last time to cast an event, I guess, at some point, right? There's gonna be one last event.
We may never know. We may never know when it'll be as well. That's a really deep thought.
I hate this thought, but okay.
Got dark.
So on a lighter note, yeah, the Proving Grounds are this weekend, so that's not going to be cast by like Blizzard or anything. But most of the teams, I think, will be streaming it, and it should be pretty fun. They'll be trying to push up keys as high as they can, and the 2 top teams will make it to the actual tournament the following weekend, which will be the one that's cast on both Twitch and YouTube. So I'm personally really hyped about this. I think that this is a great potential future of M plus esports. There's a lot of problems with the MDI that it doesn't solve, particularly like pressure towards a metagame of 5 or 6 specs or whatever. is something that I think you're never going to get away from really with M+, unless you want to sacrifice its competitiveness. But I think that it could solve a lot of the other problems that MDI has, so I hope it goes really well. I think it will.
I think so too. I think it's going to be really exciting, especially since it's the first one. And I'm kind of assuming there'll be more based on the hype for it and everyone's thoughts on it. And the drama surrounding it is kind of insane on Twitter, as we've seen. So it should be a pretty good show.
Yeah, it's drama that's in large part been manufactured by a couple of actors and a couple of fans as well. I'd say trying to really stoke fires and instigate stuff. But it is a good one. Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see as well. Which team comes out on top. A lot of different good guesses I think can exist right now, and we'll see what looks smart and what looks stupid in a week's time.
You may call it drama. Some people call it hype.
Yeah, I think that it does build a narrative. I think that that's something that the MDI has largely been missing, has been this like strong, plausible narrative for multiple different teams to be the favorites in any given weekend. That's something that like hasn't really existed in an MDI weekend. There's been upsets, right? There was that time that Method NA beat Method EU at the time at the Sydney, and there's been several cups that Perplex has won, but there's never really been a time that the current squad Echo has not been the favorite in living memory.
The last major upset I remember is were they fucking even called Method EU? They may have been called Method EU.
Yeah, it was back when it was Method EU, Method NA.
They got knocked out like of the regional qualifier of the second season of Legion, and that was like the last like major upset because then at that point like everything is like kind of out of the balance, and then it's like Jay's team and the Shells Angels team were the two teams that came out of the European regional qualifier that season. But it's like ever since then it's felt like very solved who's going to win the MDI before it even starts.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that kind of regardless of how this one resolves, I think that it still won't be clear who's the favorite next time as well, because like there's a lot of teams that are shifting around that are like these weird kind of amalgamations of different squads, a lot of stuff like that I think will mean that like if this does prove really successful and does get incorporated into the main MDI format, which I think it could if it's really successful, then I think that would be something that it would be cool to see. So I'm all hyped for this thing. I think it's going to be really, really, really sweet.
Inquiry: what do you think this means for sponsors in the space? Do you think that this is ever a thing that like teams could get sponsored for?
Yeah, I think so. I think that a lot would depend on, I think just any sponsor could, pick up particularly one of the teams that streams a lot. Like, I mean, if you're just picking up 5 streamers or whatever that stream to like a couple thousand viewers,
like Andy's team, even
I guess a lot of teams have like guild or sponsor affiliations on at least one of their players, which does throw a little bit of a thorn into the wrench.
Sure.
A wrench into the works, a thorn. I don't even know, man. I'm mixing my
thorn to the side is what
thorn
it is.
In the side, yeah. A thorn into the wrench. That's my new bit. I think that they could. I don't know.
I would assume it's just like MDI, where if they have a history of success, they're going to be picked up. Like people want to invest in teams like that are going to stay together and play well, at least mostly consistently.
I think one thing that we've learned in World of Warcraft as well is that like success can be useful because it drives viewership, but really like viewership is the engine for money. It's not one of those esports like LCS or whatever where if you're winning, that is all that it needs, right? It's not an esport where winning is you need to probably have a content engine going as well.
If you were not at the very top at that very given moment, you better be doing something extracurricular, to continue to not lose just 100% of your viewers, because you can either be like entertaining and provide a lot of content, or you can be just the absolute fucking best, and both of those things work, but one of those is certainly a little bit easier and a little bit more long form than the other one, it feels like.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of M+ tournaments, last weekend we had the Charity Pro-Am, which was pretty cool. That was an event that was a single elimination bracket one-day event with teams consisting of 2 pro players, 1 influencer, and 2 amateur players on each team. And it was actually really cool. I was casting it, and first of all, it raised a lot of money for charity, which was sweet. But second of all, it was actually, I think, really cool. I was most impressed by how well the amateur players did on those teams. There was not a lot of throwing of matches or anything from amateur players, or like people just getting smashed on the DPS meters. And in fact, in several spots, the amateur players were owning on the meters.
Yo, can we talk about that shaman from Goosey Good with the fucking 1,000 cast bars? What was that? Like, I turned on the finals because I got finished doing something, and I like look at the screen, and this shaman has like 15 cast bars on his screen watching him cast Chain Lightning. What was that?
CAD, this is CAD you're talking about. We'd watched his perspective in like round 1, and he had, I think, 1 or 2 redundant cast bars on his screen somewhere, and somebody like pointed it out as a joke. And then in the next series, he had a couple more that he'd added in to as a joke. And then he started adding, he created some charity donation goals to add more, which culminated in like a goal for a big bar across the top like quarter of his screen, which was there during the finals. It was very funny, very cool.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was an extremely good bit. I thought it was great though. I thought it was a cool way to bring in more casual players. One of the nice things about this sort of casual tournament as well was that the influencers and the pro players often got to play kind of whatever spec they wanted. We saw a lot of people on weird off specs. We saw Shakib Holy Priest briefly.
Oh my god.
Unfortunately, for unrelated reasons, we only got to see that for one match, of course.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Glad I missed that one.
So it was cool. I think it was a nice little thing. I mean, it wasn't a particularly competitive format, although I do think that there's some virtue to single elimination as a format to, create a faster paced tournament and perhaps increase the potential for upsets as well.
I have a question. Do you think it was too long? Like the program, it ended up being like 12 hours, right? 10 hours, something like that?
It ran 10 hours, yeah, which was a little over the expectation, although I knew it was going to go long from match 1. I do think that, yeah, it went on a little bit over the amount of time that would have been ideal. I mean, Europe was falling asleep when it was done, which is always, you want to try and avoid that, but I mean, I don't think that it was the end of the world or anything. I think you could split it into 2 days and solve that.
Okay.
Like most,
I think like 4 to 6 hours would have probably.
Yeah, I mean, there were 7 total matches, right? That's the same as the KSM Gauntlet that was the weekend before, except that was split into 2 days.
Yeah.
And that took roughly the same amount of time per match, a little more even. I don't know. It's kind of nice to get it all done in one day as well, though. I do think that, yeah, like one thing that this tournament had that maybe it didn't need, since it was this kind of casual charity thing, was that it was best of 3. It could have made it best of 1 even for the first 4 series, the quarterfinals or something. But I don't think it was the end of the world. I don't think it was bad. Okay.
It looked like from the outside perspective that I had, it looked like everyone was having a good time, and I think that was the main goal of it. They weren't being super competitive. I think some people were trolling.
Yeah.
I saw a couple of clips of someone gripping their teammates into some shit to get killed. I think that sounds really good.
Yeah. Shakib and Fired Up were actively trying to hit each other with every prideful line they could. It's very
MDI players, by the way.
Yeah. It was very, very quality. Okay, let's move on to some other little small topics. The first is 9.1 data mining that suggests that Keystone Master next season, rather than being tied to completing all the 15s in time, is going to be tied to achieving an M+ score of a certain amount during the season. So 2K score is going to be Keystone Master. We don't know exactly how comparable that is to IO. And we also know that there will be contribution to your score from tyrannical weeks, which there isn't right now on IO. Or from Fortified, I guess, if your Tyrant score is higher.
Yeah.
I was talking to Squishy earlier, and he was saying that it looks like about 40% is the coefficient for Tyran's score. So like if you did a 20 on both difficulties, you'd get 100 points from one and 40 points from the other.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh.
I assume they'd be like 50-50, but one is
No,
severely.
it would be 100 from Fortified and 140 from Tyran.
Uh,
Right. You said 40% coefficient.
like so your lower one earns you points at 40% effectiveness. So 100 from 100 from one and 40 from the other.
Oh, it doesn't necessarily matter which one is lower.
Yeah,
the
it's
lower
not
one.
specifically tyrannical. Like if
Gotcha,
if your fortified one was, and in practice, right, it would be a case of
Okay.
like you did a 20 plague fall fortified and a 19 or 18 tyrannical, and so you'd get less than 40% of your score from the one you were lower in. Probably more like
see.
So
30.
a hull's 20 on fortified, and then a hull's 20 on tyrannical. The fortified would be worth like 100 points because it'd be slightly faster in this instance, and then the tyrannical would be worth 40 points. So the total would be 140 points for all of halls of atonement.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. This makes sense. How? That's.
I do think that makes the 2K score easy to get to. I think I saw a screenshot of like a plus 18 was worth 300 points. So like the main higher score would be 300 for an 18, and then like 40% of that.
So yeah, if you did an
Which would-
18 in every dungeon, that's already 2,400, even without doing any tyrannical keys. Which I mean, Keystone Master's supposed to be 15 of all dungeons right now, right? So I mean, that would be higher levels than that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It sounds like it'd be pretty easy to get them with all 15s on like 1.5 weeks of keys, basically.
I think even probably just all the 15s, and then like some random 10s on the other week would potentially even get you there.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure though. Yeah. So
how do you feel about it being tied to score as opposed to like a static number? I think as long as you can, I think okay. Here's the biggest thing for me, and I think this is one of the most important elements that Raider.io has implemented is like whenever you hover over somebody's name, whenever they're looking in LFG, you can see like what level that they've done of that dungeon on that like on affix sets and like that kind of thing. And I think that that's like super important that that's actually implemented into this native Blizzard scoring system, because yeah, it's easy to see. Oh, this person is 2,000 score. I am only 1,800 score. This person must be better than me. But it's very difficult to see like what exactly does 2,000 score translate to, especially for like that dungeon you're looking for or whatever else. And I do think that like the score itself is kind of hard because it is so arbitrary at times. So making sure that there is at least a little bit more data so you can kind of pick like what you're looking for is important too.
my guess is that you'll still want to use the Raider.io add-on for that. I think
that's really true.
I doubt that they'll implement that kind of thing in game. I think they will implement the score in LFG. I mean, I think there's been screenshots of that, but I don't think they'll have the whole like this person has done a 16 necrotic wake already.
I must say that I think that they are implementing they are implementing something. I was on the PTR yesterday and I was looking at somebody else, and they definitely had like a number next to a key, like the keystone that they've done, but they didn't. I didn't see like a fixed sets or like tyrannical versus fortified or anything like that. But there at least was a little bit more data that is currently present in default tooltips.
Interesting. That's I guess that's good. I think that
we'll see where it lands in total, but I think that at least they are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, whenever there's this kind of conversation, there's always the the debate around whether it is good or bad to provide this information to group creators in Group Finder. I always land on the side of more information is better, and people are going to want to choose the most qualified applicants for their group anyways, and if you want to coerce people into grouping with people they don't want to, there's LFR, right, that does that and isn't a particularly great place, IMO. But for like M+, I think it's important that people are able to discern between people and make that kind of choice. So I do think that, yeah, the more you equip it so that people are deciding based on like what keys somebody has done rather than like, okay, what's just their item level, which is what it was in the past. I think that's better.
Yeah, I think that I think the flat score, like if they only gave score, that would be so fucking incredibly hard to like all right, yeah, this person is whatever score, but what does that really mean? And I think that if they do go like at least one layer deeper, and we'll show you like the corresponding keystone that they're applying for, right? And like their best run of that, I think that that's pretty good.
Yeah, it will help as well if you're trying to chase that bonus valor from having somebody in your group gaining score from a dungeon. Having some kind of way of finding out, like if you're actually looking for that, whether somebody qualifies for that threshold or not, would be pretty good. Would be pretty useful. Trying to get my bonus valor,
That would be nice. Trying to min-max my valor gains.
Of course, of course. All right, we'll talk about the AMZ stuff and the Keystone Re-rolling, but first, we get to do Tip of the Week, our greatest segment. My tip of the week is for new or switching Kyrian players, surrounding which order you should build your buildings in. So obviously you want to get all the rank 1s, then all the rank 2s, then all the rank 3s, right? That's kind of the build order so that you get the anima achievements and boost your anima income. But my advice would be the best rank 2 building to make is the anima conductor, because at rank 2 for Kyrian, you can get this free world quest just in the bottom right of the zone. Not the bottom right of the zone, the right-hand side of the zone, just south of your order hall. And it is extremely free. You literally just walk up and press one button 3 times, and the world quest is done. And then the first rank 3 that you want to build is the transport network, because that gets you to teleport right from your base to the to that world quest. So if you do that, you can literally log in for 1 minute on your Kyrian each day and go and do that world quest if it's anima, and get like 200 anima in a minute. And if you ever have a bastion calling, you literally just do that 3 days in a row, and bang, your calling is done for a total of like 5 minutes of effort. It's extremely, extremely good. So that's my build order is rank 2 anima conductor, and then rank 3 transport network, while getting, all the 1s, all the 2s, and all the 3s, of course.
I've really missed playing some good RTS games like StarCraft and Warcraft 3 and StarCraft 2, of course. But little did I know, we've been playing the most long-term macro in an RTS game with the Kyrian build order, brought to you by Drapnos for tip of the week.
Fucking hate that tip. So there's so much wrong with you that phrase. Kyrian Covenant build order.
It's a good build order, I'm telling you. And then you want to rush pylons, and you build 1 pylon right in their base, and you put 2 cannons next to it, and it's over. There's no counterplay.
No counterplay.
All right, Charl, what is your tip of the week?
So mine's to do with learning new specs this week. I think if you're going to learn a new spec, it's wise to macro a couple things. If there's like a big CD on the spec, I should preface that first. If there's a big CD like Metamorphosis, you should macro a couple things into that just at the beginning while you learn. Or if it's a complicated spec like Windwalker has a lot of stuff going on and you want to not focus on the little things, just macro in the trinkets or the racials, like the orc racial is very important to use with your 2-minute cooldowns into your 2-minute CD abilities at first, just so you get really comfortable with the spec. And that way you can see how well everything synchronizes together and works together. And then over time, remove stuff out of that macro. So don't think of it like a permanent thing. But I think it's good to use as a learning tool and just to like keep your brain focused on the more important stuff for a while.
Yeah, it's absolutely much better to have like orc racial macro to weapons of order for Windwalker. It's a very small DPS loss relative to pressing it like 1 global later when you first use your damaging global. But if you would ever, unmacro them and then screw it up, you've lost so much damage. So I'm with you.
Desyncing minor CDs like that, it's actually kind of a big deal sometimes when all your damage is in such a short amount of time, like especially specs like Fire Mage, for example. They're extremely bursty, or Boomkin with Convoke. They don't do a lot of damage outside of that major short time span. So you got to make sure you get everything in the right order.
For Fire Mage, don't fucking macro your trinkets to your combustion, though.
Yeah,
very.
Fire Mage.
If you're a Fire Mage, you have to use your brain with your combustion occasionally. Don't be fucking cursed and macro your trinkets in with that shit. You have to use them manually.
Yeah, I would say like when you do unmacro them, just check your logs and make sure that you're using them better than if they were macroed. I think that for a lot of players, just kind of permanently, you're going to be doing worse than macroing them together. But if you're a gamer, you can actually learn. If you're a gamer, you got enough keybinds, then it is better for sure to, usually it's press it 1 global later. is usually the play for those sorts of things, because you have that global where you press Weapons of Order and that doesn't actually do damage, and you want your Orc Racial then on your next global where you actually do hit your RSK or whatever.
I think basically. I think basically every other spec can just macro fucking like every racial and like trinkets and everything just like into your damage cooldowns, and you can just kind of slam that.
You could do it as Windwalker as well, but like for almost all of them, you'd be better off doing it one global later, right? It's just like, are you capable of having that much brain power? I'm not. I macro them to my major cooldowns almost always.
Well, the problem is that it's like the opportunity cost is like 0.3% damage.
It's very
gains.
small.
You got me fucked up. You think it? If I really like, if I needed to, I could figure it out. I'm just gonna macro it together. I don't care, man.
Yeah, I sometimes I'll do stuff like on end bosses. I'll make my bars like slightly better. I'll like unbind my mount and put stuff on my mount bind and do that kind of stuff during like a last boss progression. But I can't be bothered to do it outside of that, really.
Yeah, that's like extreme hotkey min-maxing for one encounter.
Yeah, well, I don't have enough, brain globals to hit more keybinds than I currently have. I don't want to add new ones.
I had to figure it out. I had to figure it out for double on use for Sludge Fist because I needed like a very specific timings with my shit for Sludge Fist. So it was like it was a lot of that was going on because I'm playing double on use and then I'm playing one of those as a minute and a half. So it's like I'm pressing like a lot of different shit at different timings. And it's like. So I can, but again, unless I absolutely have to, I'm fucking just gonna YOLO it with the easier to use one.
Speaking of Sludge Fist, and the reason why I brought this tip up is because yesterday in Raid on Sludge Fist, I was actually pressing my 2-minute CDs, but they were like 5 seconds before the boss hit the pillar to get his vulnerability, and it was like the 4th pillar, right? And so I noticed right then, I was like, I wouldn't want my stuff to be macroed into my CDs here because I want my
your Blood Fury 4 seconds later, yeah.
Yeah, like 4 seconds into my CDs in this case, which is a very rare case, but it is good to actually like think about those things as you play rather than always having the macro. But generally, having the macro is like the best option.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, the cases where that damage is going to make a difference is like world top, very small number rating. IMO, at least.
Going for a rank 1 parse or
if you're going for a rank 1 parse, or if you're just like, I mean, if you're a perfectionist, I think that the pursuit of perfection is a very valid gaming style that I think people kind of dismiss it. They're like, oh, you just don't need that outside of top context. But if that's what's fun for you is trying to optimize as close to 100% as you can, that's what's fun. For me, that's a lot of fun sometimes too. So
yeah, definitely.
All right, let's do Tettles' clip of the week, which comes from the charity Pro-Am. Yeah,
it needs audio.
All right. What is this? 25 seconds? Okay, here we go.
Sure. How many times have you healed as a holy priest before?
Well, I healed a couple people in town last night, and it seemed to be pretty stable.
They were full for like the whole time.
They stayed full
in town. What about like what about like raiding?
Nah, like in town.
Okay.
Like right
I dig
here?
it. I can dig it.
That's it.
I can dig it.
That's Tally trying to wrangle his teammate Shakib, who has played Holy Priest there for the first time.
I just love how he's being serious,
yeah.
And Shaq just goes, in town, and fired up, follows up Shaq. He goes, yeah, they were very healthy. And then Tally, I think, had a moment of realization. He's just like, I've understood what's going on now. Oh my fucking god.
Yeah, dude. When I saw the influencer pro player combos and I saw that team, fired up Shakib, Tally, I was like, oh heavens, what is Tally getting into here?
That is a good team. No, I mean, I think that's like the team you want to be on for a fucking pro-am is just like, it's supposed to be fun and memey and shit. Like, sure, you could be like hyper competitive and shit.
Dude, I think they should have broken up Fired Up and Shakib. I think those are like the two troublemakers in class where if you sit them next to each other, nothing's ever going to happen.
They're not allowed to sit in the back of the classroom. Both of them have to sit in the front, except opposite ends of the front.
Yeah,
of the
exactly. And you got to keep them in your cone of vision the whole time, or else like paper airplanes are going to be flying across the room.
True.
Okay, let's move on to the gutting of Death Knight. So what is happening to Death Knight? Anti-magic zone is the only ability being changed here in the gutting of this spec. But it has been nerfed in 3 different ways. So currently on live, it is a 2-minute cooldown. On PTR, it's going up to 3.
Whew.
Currently on live, it lasts 10 seconds. On PTR, it'll now last 8. And currently on live, it just lasts those full 10 seconds. But on PTR, it will go away after it has absorbed the Death Knight's health multiplied by their versatility. So like 6% versatility, 106% of the Death Knight's health.
Yeah, no, that shit's bad.
and
That
go
shit's
away.
bad right there.
Wait,
Like, right
everybody
now-
scale off of the Death Knight's versatility or their own versatility?
It's the Death Knight.
The AMZ will mitigate based on the Death Knight's versatility, but the damage that would be taken by the person is being mitigated by their versatility. So I assume that is going to come in first, because that's a damage reduction
shield
as well.
number.
And then all the damage reductions apply, and then absorb shields reduce damage.
Yeah. Okay. So interestingly enough, too, if you put that in like right now's numbers, the DK probably has like 50,000 HP, and say they're running like 20% versatility, that would only be like a 60k mitigate, right?
Yeah. So with current numbers, Death Knights are sitting. A geared Death Knight is around 45,000 HP, and they don't play much verse. Unholy DKs don't play too much verse. They play like
so it may be like 50k or something like that.
It will absorb something like 50,000 damage. In Myth, like if it was put in Mythic Castle Nathria right now, it would absorb something like 50,000 total damage, which means it would be effective against total incoming magic damage of 250,000 before it goes away, which is most AMZs apart from like some on like Mythic Sire. I think it would disappear from the big meteor on SLG, for instance. I think it would get almost all of that. But like the first one you use during Sire to Nathrius is more damage than that by quite a bit.
Any dots too are just fucking awful now too. Like, can you imagine on Unat? Not Unat. Last boss of Nyalotha. Oh gosh, what was his name? N'Zoth. Can you imagine using AMZ on N'Zoth and just get eaten immediately?
I don't think it would get eaten that immediately. Like
with his dot. Like you have the pulsing AoE and you have the dot, and there's so much like AoE damage going on that I'm pretty sure that
it would probably take a tick, 2 ticks, 2 or 3. I mean, that's pretty good though.
It's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I
think it localizes it more for like a big CD against a huge burst of damage, which is already kind of its purpose, right? So like ticking raid damage like on the Zoth isn't that big of a deal, I wouldn't think.
I think that the comparison to Darkness is still pretty favorable for AMZ, actually. So like now it has the same cooldown and the same duration as Darkness. Darkness has the drawback that it is random, right? Which means that of the 20 players in your raid, somebody is not going to benefit much from it, right? So its life-saving value there is actually pretty sus, right? You still need to be looking out for that, right? And there's a lot of randomness inherent to it, which is not something you're looking for in a life-saving effect. Whereas AMZ's downside is that against really heavy magic damage, instead of being a 20% DR, it's probably more like a 10% against those like really top important moments. But like, of the 5 or 6 melee specs that saw play in Nathria, 4 were Death Knights, right? Of the like 18 different melee specs, 1 got the overwhelming majority of the melee spots, right? Like Death Knight was really, 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 really good. You nerf their AMZ by half, I think they're still fine. I think they're vibing. I think that AMZ, like if you're looking at kits like Feral Druid, Enhancement Shaman, like most of the other melee specs in the game, Rogue, you're just like, okay, what do you guys bring to the table? And Death Knight's still rolling up with like 5 things that are more useful than any of that stuff. And AMZ, which even at half effectiveness, is still, I think, a banger.
You know what they need to give Rogue? They need to give them Smoke Bomb back.
Bomb. Yeah.
Yes. What was Warlord's Smoke? I remember Warlord's Smoke Bomb was like really, really insane.
They briefly were going to with Conflict and Strife, but then they changed their mind.
Warlords of Draenor Smoke Bomb was it has the no mobs outside of it can cast into it, so all of like the caster mobs would immediately walk in. But on top of that, 10% mitigation against all damage while you're standing inside of the smoke bomb. Which I remember this from Hellfire Citadel mythic rating, it was the Manaroth encounter. You would drop Smoke Bomb on those little imps, and all of the imps would come in, and you would mitigate just a fuck ton of damage from the bomb. It was insane.
That would be pretty sweet.
I think,
but also it'd be another DRCD.
It'd be broken. It
Yeah.
would certainly be broken.
I mean, and just the 10% group-wide DR, pretty strong. I think a way of contextualizing the AMZ, right, is that if the AMZ does get all the way absorbed, that means that it has healed for a full player health bar worth of healing, right? Like it has provided that much absorb. It has provided a full player's worth of health bars absorb across the whole raid. Like that's not bad. That's
over
each
8
player.
seconds. Yeah.
That's a lot of healing if you think about it.
Yeah. So each player, if each player if that's split evenly among each player in the raid, they're each getting a 5% of their health absorb or whatever. I mean, that's not useless. That's not useless at all. Like compare that to like, Lay on Hands is a pretty potent effect. That's a health bar's worth of value, but it's, you're never getting a full health bar out of it, and it's on a longer cooldown, and there's no way to reliably use it for value, but it sometimes is life-saving. AMZ is just like, if you press it, either it doesn't get all the way eaten through, and then it's the same as it was before, or it does get all the way eaten through, and it has provided that much value, which is a lot. So I know.
How do you feel?
I'm
How
fine.
do you feel about it for Blood? Because Blood obviously has increased health by a significant amount.
So yeah, Blood DK with Vamp Blood has like double the health of an Unholy Death Knight, and they actually use versatility more than Unholy, so it would be, probably twice that much. A Blood DK AMZ, my belief is, assuming they line it up with Vamp Blood, it would cover almost every damage instance in Castle Nathria the same as before, except it would expire after 8 seconds instead of 10.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean it doesn't help Blood DK, which I think is a good thing relative to Unholy and Frost. It does make that argument a little bit stronger. I don't think it wins the argument for Blood DKs as tanks necessarily, because there's a lot going for the other specs still.
Notably raid buffs.
Yeah. I think also the combination of Rally plus AMZ is going to be potent. The life-saving potential of AMZ alone. Now, if you use Rally plus AMZ, that, first of all, Rally is helping everybody's effective health as well. And second of all, if your DK has more health, the AMZ is bigger.
Rally is almost uniformly a better raid cooldown now, though, right?
Yeah. Rally has always been really good.
Yeah.
And will continue to be. I think that this tier, if Warriors were doing Unholy DK damage and had AMS and everything else that Death Knights have, you'd just bring them in all the spots that were AMZs, you'd rally, and that'd be fine. But like, that's the thing about DK is like AMS is still brokes.
They have AMS for one spell drive. That's what you're talking about.
Okay, all right.
One damaging stuff.
Star of Light works against some stuff, but not against the stuff AMS works.
Soul traps. I mean, what else is AMS just like super broke versus?
I mean, you just press it and it gives you a huge
Blood
absorb.
price. Yeah, Blood price is way better than Spell Reflect.
Spell Reflect is not bad for that. Obviously, you press it and it's good, but it doesn't make it so that you're like not in danger of dying. Also, this tier just Death's Advance passive was broken as well.
Oh my god, yeah, that ability is actually insane.
There were a lot of encounters where that was useful, huh? It's kind of insane, yeah.
There really were.
Also, I was going to say, I think DKs might be safe. They have all these things we're talking about. Already in Mythic testing coming up, we're going to see some fights where DKs are going to be useful, I'm sure. Like, there's several fights where ads spawn all around the room. And one fight in particular, I think it's Soul Rendered, Dormazane or something. The one with the spoiler character from the past in the fight where you have to like group up all 4 ads really quickly. DKs are going to be great on that fight.
Yeah, I think they will still be a top melee spec. And I think that from the perspective of Blizzard balancing, they should be much more worried about another Castle Nathria with 4 Death Knights than the possibility of over-nerfing them and getting us down to 0 Death Knights. Because 0 Death Knights is a lot healthier than 4 for raid composition diversity, right? Like there's a lot of specs that are just sitting out in the rain right now that don't get any play.
Yeah.
Obviously aiming so that like Death Knight is good but not broken is ideal. And I think that this is a good nerf towards that. I think that AMZ was really, really, really broken and it needed a pretty big nerf. And this is a pretty big nerf, and I think it'll still be good.
I think the biggest problem with AMZ and DK is that how stackable the whole thing was, right? You could
So that's an
you could
interesting
effectively
argument.
bring fucking 3 of them and just like, all right, this is I've brought 3 of them, and now I have an AMZ for every single blood price in phase 1. You're just like, okay, this is fucking bullshit.
So interestingly, now if you wanted to AMZ every blood price in phase 1, you would need 6 Death Knights instead of 3 because the cooldown increase. So there is that angle of like, oh, maybe you want more, or maybe something where AMZ lasts only half of the damage. You now need 2 AMZs there, one when the first goes away, right? So maybe we're going into a world of 10 Death Knights to get you the same AMZ value you used to get from 3. But I don't think that we're gonna do that. I think the opportunity cost is too high. Yeah, I don't know.
Going back to Smoke Bomb real quick, that would have been awesome. I saw in chat someone talked about the council fight from this tier. Imagine putting down Smoke Bomb every time the waiter spawned. That'd be great.
Wait,
Then no more Boomkin tyranny. Just only meters on the waiter damage the entire fight.
You should be
second,
able
I don't
to.
like this.
You should be able to smoke bomb the boss right as the boomie's convoking, and just all of their spells just don't hit, and they turn into healing spells instead.
I would cry. Dude, my rogue would step me and smoke bomb on top of me, on top of the fucking boss.
Yeah,
Like, whoa,
definitely.
Yeah, you smoke bomb on the boss, and then you grip the boomie away.
That's not exactly how smoke bomb worked in PvE. It actually didn't work like that. You can attack into friendly.
It's like that in PvP as well, where your friendly smoke bombs don't affect you. But if they did, that would be cool.
I mean, fucking griefed is what's happening. That's actually what's happening.
Okay, some other little news from PTR that is cool. There's the Night Fae Mage Legendary. Heart of the Fae. This one actually looks pretty good. Shifting power can be channeled while moving. Although mages can already just do everything while moving because they have Shimmer.
They have Shimmer, yeah.
Each enemy hit by shifting power grants you 1% crit and haste, up to 10% for 10 seconds. I don't know what the theory crafting looks like on this, but it seems pretty strong. I don't know if this is better than Disciplinary Command or whatever, but at least this is one that reads to me as potentially being pretty good.
Seems good.
I'll have to ask some mages too.
Yeah. A couple other little balancing things on the PTR as well. But the biggest news is Keystone Re-rolling / Keystone Deleting, whatever you want to call it, is back. Toss-Up shows up at the end of your dungeon, and if you timed the key, he offers a one-time Keystone exchange to any player whose current Keystone is at or below the level of the dungeon that was recently completed on time. Higher level ones can't be traded, including the Keystone that was used to start the run, obviously, because that has been upgraded to a higher level one as well. What do you guys?
Happy to see it. I think it's great. They're doing stuff like this constantly. They're actually making a lot of good choices for Mythic Plus. This was spawned from an accidental system they had at the very beginning of BFA, where if you deleted your Keystone during the run, you would just get a lower level Keystone of a random dungeon at the end of the run out of the chest. So effectively, 4 players would delete all their King's Rest keys or from this expansion, Sanguine Depths keys, and they would just get, hopefully not Sanguine Depths, out of the chest and then go do that dungeon afterward, which is a really good system for groups that had less time. I was working a full-time job and pushing at the time, and it really helped my group actually do the keys that we needed to do on the right week, because, pushing High Mythic Plus, you can't really push every week. You got to wait till the good weeks come around most of the time. So this system was really heavily missed by the community, and it's good to see it. I just wish it hadn't taken several years to come back.
Yeah, it was a shame that they fixed Keystone Deletion, and now, 2 years later, they're adding in a system that is pretty functionally identical. It does have this, in-time requirement, which I think is an upgrade. Probably creates better incentives, but,
Yeah, true.
What if we could have just had Keystone Deletion until now, and now they're okay, now you can't delete keys, and we're adding Toss-Up?
I think that they didn't want you re-rolling keys that much. I think that was their biggest point of contention with the whole entire system, is that they didn't want you re-rolling them that many times. Honestly, this is a fine compromise. Yeah, you can argue that it should have came 3 years sooner, but I think it's one of those things. It's thank fucking God we have it now.
Yeah, there is a little bit of ambiguity here. What do they mean by one-time Keystone exchange to any player, right? Does that mean that one person in the group gets to use a Keystone exchange? or that all the
okay.
people in your group get to do one Keystone exchange?
I think it's the latter. I think
Me
it's
too.
all of the people in your group get a one-time Keystone exchange
Yeah.
per week. That's
Okay.
at least that's how it fucking should be.
Now-
if it's not, then we're gonna have some choice words.
Question number 2. You time a 20 mists, and your group mate
Yes.
turns in their 15 Sanguine Depths key. Are they getting a random 15, a random 20, a random 21?
Random 15.
Okay, so just it keeps the same level.
It should.
It doesn't go up to whatever level you've just proved you could time.
It should keep the same level. Honestly, that's how I feel about it. But I mean, I would be fine if it went up higher. But
These are the mysteries. I think it should go up. I think that it could go up to like, one below the level or something. But I think that this would be a great way to make it so that somebody who has like a random +2 key in their bags for some reason, and they've just timed to 15, doesn't have to like be stuck with a +2 key anymore.
That would be nice, yeah. I guess the once a week thing does make sense because usually the groups that are consistent will have 4 Sanguine Depths or King's Rest keys on like the weekend of that particular push week.
Oh,
And then once it comes around, they can reroll once, and then they have better keys, hopefully.
you think this is you can only do this once per week?
I thought that's what
I
the
think
word-
I thought by one time it was like once per dungeon you timed.
oh no, I think it's once per week, Dratnus.
Where
Yeah, I
where
think
do you
it's-
see the word week in here at all?
Oh, maybe it is once per dungeon time.
It spawns at the end
I would
of Mythic
rather
Plus
have
dungeons.
once per dungeon.
I feel like it's every dungeon. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why it would be once per week. I guess that's one read of one time. An equally valid read, probably more supported by the text, is that it's once per expansion, right? Once ever in the
Ever,
lifetime
yeah.
of your character.
It certainly reads like it's once ever, but I know that that's not fucking like actually. There's no way that is the actual conclusion of that.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it could be on a weekly or daily lockout.
Which season are you guys going to use your key reroll in?
They should just make it cost a conduit energy to use this thing.
I wouldn't hate if they made it cost Valor. You had unlimited. You just like had unlimited rerolls. but you
Unlimited
just had to pay
rerolls.
Valor.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cringe at first, but especially if you have to balance like how much Valor you're spending versus key rerolling. But later on, you wouldn't give a fuck.
Yeah, I think that it would be better to just offer this at the end of every dungeon you time.
Yeah. I think the reason I just don't think that they want it to be unlimited, but maybe they don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I mean, so they want people to like do Theater of Pain and Sanguine Depths a little bit, obviously. When that was definitely the drawback of key deletion, was that nobody went to King's Rest except for when they explicitly decided, okay, let's get a King's Rest key done. But even then, that was a very rare feeling. That was something you felt like once or twice per year, was the urge to go to a King's Rest for any reason. At the start of a new patch when you needed a new Katiku.
I mean, we needed this because we only have 8 dungeons right now. I did the mega dungeon. The mega dungeon is I'm interested to see how the trash ends up playing out. There's some of the trash mobs that are fucking toxic right now, but
Oh boy.
they have this mob that heals. They've resummoned the fucking Murlocs from EOA, except one of them has like a fish skewer cast that AoE heals the group, and there's no stopping it.
Dude.
There's no stopping it. It's a ground effect. You're like, it's awful. It's like
Yeah, I need to
unlimited
test that
range.
dungeon.
It's like unlimited range right now. It's
We don't think that M Plus will be active there until 9.2, though, right? That's usually how this works.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I do think that the only 8 dungeons thing is a drawback, an unforced error, I'd say, of Shadowlands. I wish
think they should go with 10.
I think that they should do time walking dungeons, seasonal time walking dungeons.
Zyro, is that you?
Check it. Okay, so like during each season, you designate like 1 or 2 old expansion dungeons as being part of the M Plus pool that season.
Uh-huh.
There's so many expansions now that have M Plusable dungeons you could bring back, right? Like literally, Mop, WAD, Legion, or BFA. All of those dungeons would be totally fine. You could bring them up and like a quick pass through to make sure that all the mechanics are still going to work well with current design of classes, and then just for the whole season you could just have keys dropping for those dungeons and M plus of them.
2 per something.
Yeah, and then
That would
each
be really
season
cool.
you swap out which ones are in the pool.
It would definitely keep it fresh and keep it interesting, and like give someone a reason to go do Mythic Plus. Even if there's nothing else new, one new dungeon kind of per season would be pretty cool.
Bro, I gotta make my fucking way back to. Okay, I have WAD time walking the portals. I have the CM ports because I'm a fucking gamer. I have to figure out how to
dude.
fucking get to the Mist's goddamn dungeon. I don't know where the Mist dungeons are. I didn't play that expansion. How the fuck am I supposed to find Mogushan Palace or where the fuck that dungeon's called?
Maybe there's an ethereal in Orbos who can teleport you to the active ones or something, but I think it would be kind of cool to have to actually go and get back to them the old-fashioned way as well.
But Dratnus, we're dead. We shouldn't even be allowed. Honestly, we shouldn't even be allowed to go to like Orgrimmar or any of the old zones at all. We're stuck in the dead realm. We should be forced to be stuck here.
It should be like one of those games where it's like once you progress to Shadowlands, it's like there's no turning back after this point. Are you sure you want to go into the Maw?
Yeah.
New game plus, but just no more old content at all.
Not until next expansion where we come out of the Shadowlands.
Do you guys think they're going to do a time jump for next expansion? We return like 30 years later because of time flowing differently in the Shadowlands.
That'll definitely be a very meta thing to do. That'd be pretty cool.
No, dude. They're oh god, who was it? Who was in fucking Men in Black? It was Will Smith, and who was his partner? Okay, Will Smith's gonna fucking roll up, and he's gonna show us the fucking mind eraser, and he's gonna hit us with the blink, and then you're just gonna show back up, and you'll be like, what the fuck happened? All I remember, the last thing I remember is killing Garrosh.
All right. Well, we've strayed a little bit from the listed topics here, which is good. That was an important discussion there for sure.
Tommy Lee Jones, that's right.
Okay, that's good to know.
Old man.
Let's go to the end of the show. But first, we get to do Q&A. But even firster, we get to thank our Patreon supporters from patreon.com/Titanforge. Big shout out to everybody there. Everybody hanging out in the Discord as well. Talking, organizing keys and stuff in there. A lot of delightful activities to be had in the Titanforge community. So thanks everybody for being a part of it. The top of the top, the creams of the crop, as it were, are Polly Pocket Healer for the illustrious Catgirl Bathwater future champions of Keystone Builders.
Yo, did you hear about this Keystone? Hold on, don't want to derail you. Did you hear about this Keystone Builders thing? Basically, it's an event. It's an event where they have to. They start with like a +2, and then they push the key.
It's 2 hours, right?
Yeah, in 2 hours, and see how high you can go with it.
I think we might have talked about it even a little bit last week.
Oh shit, do we?
Maybe.
We did, but it's very hype. I think we should talk about it again.
Yeah. Okay. Sell it, Terrell.
Oh, I mean, tell us, you go. It sounds really cool.
Terrell, please,
it's very hype.
of the Keystone Builders.
I think this kind of event's really cool because it opens the door to basically anyone who can do Mythic Plus, any spec, because specs don't really begin to matter that much until you're up in the 20s, 20 plus up until 29, 30, where people are doing on the tournament realm. But if you're just pushing a +2 as high as it can go in 2 hours, a key does take like at least 10 minutes, even if you're doing it +2, probably. And so you're not going to be able to get up past, I would reckon, around 20. So you could pretty much put together a group of gamers and just go for it. And your goal would be to 3 chests every single time and just have a plan. If you got like one of the harder keys to 3 chests, I actually don't know which keys those would be right now, but you'd have to have a plan to pull those keys very aggressively depending on what affixes you had.
Yeah, you go into Theater of Pain, and it's just you set up 2 kill teams to go to different wings and clear them at the same time. Yeah.
That would actually be so sick.
That would be so cool. Yeah. Good luck to those competing in that tournament, especially the team of our patrons there. Continuing on down the list.
Water.
A Hego Girl of US Tichondrius, Riley. Well, at least Elite DH got 2 shoutouts last week. Oh yeah, that was when Tettle screwed that up. Yeah, I remember that. Note to self, Word of Glory costs 3 holy power, not 2. Ja, Dratnos' Dino Pillow, Chromed, Trekkie, The Marshare, Never Nude, Chewy, Titanforged, aka Tettleton's insensitivity to acronym names forces overcorrection, resulting grief, excuses, and disappointment.
What the fuck?
So true.
How am I getting flamed?
ZivXX, please let Trash Can of US Thrall out of SLG prison. Necris, Tankdill, Nevuk, Sinmora, Eevee, can't wait to main Unholy DK in 9-2. I have some terrible, terrible news about your class. Stevenson. Yeah. Love the Constantinople bit. Take Light of the Protector and Frenzied Regen off the GCD. No trick. I scheduled a Tetal's Flame. Sire Dematicus. Hashtag fix Iron Fur bug. Get your vaccine for free 5G cell access after installation and update period. I actually miss rep grinds. Nix. Shout out to Delete DH for still being Delete DH. Brusif. Dratnos Routes Abyss. Stay hydrated and sleep well, gamers. Feels okay, man. M Sanity. Canyon and Moon Sonara of Emerald Dream Division 7 and Area 52 Scraw. Xena. Rogue is now good enough for Prague, but still bad enough to be sat for SLG. Bless up.
Rogue is getting really good.
Yeah, Rogue's growing.
Death Knight's loss is Rogue's game, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Because those two specs have very similar like damage profiles, and AMS Cloak of Shadows pretty comparable as well.
Yeah,
Sin is like one of the highest executes in the game right now, isn't it?
Yeah, 30% more damage, effectively below 30% health. Pretty lit, as the kids say.
Only comparable to Soul Reaper.
Yeah, Soul Reaper is really good too. Soul Reaper is a lot harder. You have to actually press a button for Soul Reaper during execute though, whereas with Assassination is just pure passive. No misplay opportunity with that. Red color. Some Zero of US Tichondrius now featuring the Hunt technology. YouTube.com/workbringer. Morty died 3 times to mechanics this week. A horror of US Proudmoore. Kaoze's mythic team is trash cans and not trash cants. Gallic, Snicker Shelby, and Alphabet Soup. Thank you all for the support. And congratulations, Tettles, on updating the spreadsheet this time.
Thanks.
Congrats,
I updated it last time. There was just so many updates that I fucked it up like a moron.
Let's move on to Q&A. Our first question comes from Sean in Discord, who asks, do you think that the raid meta for tanks impacts the M+ meta for tanks, especially when it comes to Guardian and Prop Pally, who don't bring any raid buffs?
Absolutely. At least for the first few months of the tier, 100%, because those classes just aren't going to be in most of the top guilds until they gear their ult. Because, I mean, the way the game works right now, you have to have the raid buffs on either the tanks or the melee, and usually it's the tanks that have been getting it this tier, at least because of tuning.
Yeah, I definitely think it impacts the opening meta, and I think it'll impact the meta, like, to the extent that raid meta affects who plays which spec. I think that affects the M+ meta a great deal at, like, the plus 15 key level. It's just like, if Vengeance Demon Hunter is popular because everybody's playing it for raid, it'll be popular in the 15 keys. Although, 15 keys, we see stuff like Druid, Resto Druid being really popular, despite not being a very popular raid healer or a particularly good M+ healer this patch either. I think that, Guardian and Prop Pally, if more people had super geared ones from raid, would more of them be doing higher keys? Probably to some extent. Probably to the extent that, like, random players get roped into M+ groups on their current mains and aren't choosing a character for M+, but are just playing their character in M+. That does matter.
Right.
I do think it's mostly the first couple months where it's really impactful. I think late, particularly like the high-end meta, late into the patch, is pretty divorced from the raid meta.
Yeah, definitely. And it's always like that. There's always like a cycle of what you see in keys until about the Hall of Fame time period ends, and then people start getting fully geared, fully capable of the player power for the patch because of stuff that's time gated. It usually ends around that time too. So like Renown will max out this next season, and then a couple months in, we'll probably see some shift in the meta of Mythic Plus, like always.
What do you think, Tettles? You've been looking quizzical over there.
I fucked up somebody's name.
Oh, Tettles,
talk about it.
What are we going to do with you?
I think my thoughts on this are, like, we even saw Prot Warrior last season to BFA be brought, and they were just terrible in raid, so...
Yeah, that's true.
They were the best tank in Mythic Plus, so...
I think Prot Warrior in 8.3 is a great example.
They were kind of residually good, though, from a previous season, so people kind of knew they were going to be good based on scaling, and like the season 3 affix right before was heavy magic damage, and then that went away. So Prot Warrior was like kind of lined up to be the best tank. But even then, we didn't see a lot of them at first. It was kind of just the prot mains, and then eventually everyone would play prot after progression.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think also that, like, there's this kind of lag between people being aware that a spec is going to be good and them actually having it geared and ready. And that lag is, the awareness was there pretty quick for Prot Warrior, right? So people were gearing it a month in advance. But like something like now where Guardian Druid has become this kind of cool new hotness M+ tank, it's not like anybody was really gearing Guardian Druids outside of Raiders who want all the raid specs or whatever. And so, we're probably not going to see too much of it this patch.
For the record, I was gearing a Guardian Druid months ago, but then my appendix exploded and then I stopped.
Yeah. Your body telling you it was not time to play bear.
It's like, no bear. One button thrash, not enough.
All right, any questions from Twitch chat you want to grab, Tuddles, or we
We didn't have anything. They're flaming me about, not flaming me. They're telling me about how I fucked up this name. Don't worry about it.
Incredible.
We'll figure it out later.
I can't believe you've done this. Anyways, we will be back next week at Wednesday once again. On Thursday on the slower platforms, the non-live platforms. And then after that, we'll probably return to our Sunday or Saturday cadence for the month of June. So that's what you guys got to look forward to. Tettles is going to try his best to get everybody's names right next time. We'll see how well he does. But that's going to be the end of this week's episode.
It's never
everybody.
fucking happening. I'm
Bye.
cursed. It's cursed.